Hey guys, welcome back to another video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Miranda and I teach about anything and everything related to the trucking industry and how to navigate it. So if this is a topic that interests you, feel free to subscribe down below. So as a lot of you guys know, I make a ton of market videos on this channel, and the reason is simple. I'm trying to provide at least some semblance of clarity in this craziness. Everybody is shaking in their boots at the moment, trying to understand what exactly is going on and how to prepare for the future. Some of you have reached out to me frustrated, rightfully so, not understanding how is it that because of inflation, all the prices are going up, but the freight rates are going down. Now, I talk a lot about supply, demand, seasonality, and so on, but something that I have never talked about is the bullwhip effect. So today, this is going to be the topic of the video, the bullwhip effect and how it affected the market and how it can potentially affect the market in the future. Ready? Let's go. So the first question is, what in the world is a bullwhip effect?
It's when brokers are taking a whip and beating carriers left and right with it.
Well, I am not denying that this is exactly what's happening right now, but no. The bullwhip effect is a supply chain phenomenon that describes how small fluctuations in demand at the retail level can cause progressively larger fluctuations at the wholesale, distributor, manufacturer, and raw material suppliers levels. I know that's a lot of words, so it's a little bit confusing. So for my visual peeps, let's take a look at an example. Okay, let me give you an example of the bullwhip effect. So we have consumers, we have the retailer, in this case, let's say it is Walgreens, we have the distributor, and then we have the manufacturer. So let's say that usually consumers come into Walgreens and Walgreens keeps 100 packs of hand sanitizer in stock, because usually when consumers come in, Walgreens sells on average 30 packs per day. So since Walgreens usually sells 30 packs per day and they want to keep 100 in stock, they go ahead and place an order from the distributor of 70 packs to replenish the amount and keep in stock 100. And then the distributor orders from the manufacturer produces everything and provides Walgreens with 70 packs of sanitizer. Now, one day the consumers go into Walgreens and Walgreens sells 80 sanitizers in one day instead of the regular 30 sanitizers a day. So Walgreens starts thinking and predicts that consumers are going to be now buying more hand sanitizer. So what does it do? It places an order from the distributor for 150 sanitizers instead of the usual 70 to meet the potential growing demand. Now the distributor then orders 300 sanitizers from the manufacturer to ensure that they don't run out of the product. And the manufacturer, because they want to be on the safe side, they produce 350 sanitizers. So in the end, because consumers bought 80 sanitizers instead of 30 sanitizers in a day, and the prediction of Walgreens about consumer demand changed, we went from 80 sanitizers to 350 sanitizers that were actually produced. Now, Walgreens only ordered 150, but the manufacturer made 350 because everyone is trying to cover their butts. Obviously, that was a very simplified example, but it does get the point across. But why is this important? Well, because this is exactly what happened when COVID hit. There was a rise in demand at the retail level, which caused retailers to adjust their forecasts. And those adjusted forecasts meant that retailers were placing larger orders from wholesalers, and in turn, wholesalers were placing larger orders from the manufacturers. But who was in the middle of all of this order frenzy? Carriers. They were the ones who were transporting product from the manufacturer to the wholesaler, from the wholesaler to the retailer, and so on and so forth. Now, this was all fine and dandy and wonderful until all of a sudden lockdowns were lifted, inflation grew, and fuel prices became obscene. And all of a sudden, consumer spending got adjusted to a more realistic level. So now we have retailers who are stuck with too much product that they cannot move. But now let's talk about an even more interesting point that I read in an article. Now there's the CEO, I forgot his name and I forgot his company, but he's the CEO of a big ocean carrier. And he's under the impression that next year in 2023, we will have a bullwhip effect, but going in the opposite direction. So what does this all mean? Well, he believes that at the retail level, retailers are panicking so much about the fact that they have so much inventory that they cannot move that they're cutting orders like crazy. And as we already saw from the example of the bullwhip effect, if retailers are not ordering, neither are the wholesalers, and manufacturers cut production. In other words, there's not enough freight on the market for trucks to actually move. But back to this CEO. He said, what will happen if the retailers realize that the underlying consumer demand is actually healthy and then start panicking about the fact that they actually don't have enough inventory to meet demand? Well, in that case, retailers will obviously start ordering like crazy again, and therefore trucking companies will have freight to move. But the question is consumer demand healthy? So I decided to check it out. Now, unfortunately for me, there is no actual chart that measures consumer demand and whether it's at a healthy level. So in order to determine whether consumer demand is actually healthy, we're going to have to work through a couple of statistics together. So first, let's take a look at the Consumer Sentiment Index, which basically tells us how optimistic are consumers about the state of their own finances and about the state of the economy. This consumer sentiment will help us understand whether people, consumers, are more likely to spend more. And remember, for the trucking industry, it's important to us that consumer demand and consumer sentiment is healthy, because the more people spend, the more product trucks get to transport. So here's the consumer sentiment. I will leave links down below to all of these graphs. I know a lot of you are very interested in where I get these. This is from January 2020 all the way until now, which is October 2022. So as you can see, consumer sentiment has slowly decreased. Now, in October of 2021, the consumer sentiment was at 71.7. Now it's at 59.8. If you can see it, let's make it bigger here, 59.8. Now we can see that somewhere in July there was a sharp decrease, and now it's starting to increase a little bit, which is great. That means that people since July are becoming a little bit more optimistic about the economy or possibly about their own finances. We'll take a look at what exactly that is. But this is good because this means that people, the more optimistic they are, the more likely they are to spend. Now I want to show you the consumer spending index. Basically, how much are people spending on goods and services? Here we go, from January 2020 until July 2022. I didn't find any more recent data, but what you can see is consumer spending is actually going up. So what gives? We just saw that the consumer sentiment did go down since 2020 and since 2021, but the consumer spending is up. So what is going on? How is it possible that consumers who are not as optimistic about the future of the economy or about their own finances spending more? Well, it's actually pretty easy. There are a crap ton of jobs out there, and the unemployment is at the lowest point since 1953. Let me show you. So I know this is very hard to see. The gray areas are the recession times. In 1953, right here, the unemployment was at 2.5 around. Now it's at 3.5. It's at the lowest point. Just so you can see, this is 2022 in October. You can see that unemployment rates are very low, which is great. That means that consumers are making money, which means they have more buying power, right? Well, the thing is, even though unemployment is low and wages are actually up, we have to factor in inflation right now. So let's take a look. Here's what we get. The blue line is the wages. You can see that they are growing. They're right here right now. But the red line is after accounting for inflation. Now, this is what in finance, it's called a dead cat bounce. I hope this is not the case here, but this is what it's called. As you can see, even though the wages are up, when you account for all the inflation, People are just not earning enough to afford the cost of living within the United States. So just to summarize, yes, people are earning more, but because of inflation eating up everything that they earn or most of what they earn, the purchasing power of Americans is going down. And purchasing power is extremely important because we in the trucking industry want consumers to spend, to buy more, so that retailers are placing their orders so that we, the trucking companies, can actually transport goods from point A to point B to point C and so on. So in conclusion, what do I think? Do I think that consumer demand is healthy? Do I think that there is a likelihood of this bullwhip effect in the opposite direction next year? I was mulling over how to answer this question for a while because I tried to be the positive voice on YouTube. I tried to keep everyone's hopes up. It's very important to me. But I also realized that it's equally important to be realistic, because if I'm feeding you guys positive lies, you will not be prepared for what is to come next. So to answer this question, consumer demand is seemingly at a healthy level right now. However, we saw that consumers, even though they're earning more, they are actually spending more as well due to inflation. If inflation continues to grow or even stays at the same level in 2023, I believe consumer demand will dwindle away. And of course, if consumer demand dwindles away, retailers are going to place fewer orders because people are not buying as much, and wholesalers will be placing fewer orders, and therefore manufacturers will be producing less. So the bullwhip effect in the opposite direction next year, I cannot see it happening at this point. I really hope I am wrong. Now, I know this is going to sound absolutely terrible, and I hate saying this, but this is the reality. The only way carriers are going to see some sort of relief next year is if enough carriers go out of business. I cannot see that there's going to be more freight in the market. But what I do see is that there's going to be potentially less trucks in the market because so many carriers are going out of business right now. Now, even though freight levels will probably not change that much or will actually go down in 2023, if enough carriers go out of business, then supply and demand starts working to improve potentially those rates, those freight rates. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope that you guys found it insightful. I hope you learned something about the current market situation. I really hope that I'm wrong about 2023. I hope that consumer demand stays strong and that freight levels increase next year, but I'm curious about what you guys think. So leave a comment down below. Let me know what your predictions for 2023 are. I'll see you guys in the next video.